Hey everybody, welcome to the Head Startup. On today's video, I'm going to take you through the process of registering a company for tax in Ireland. Taxes like corporation tax, PAYE, VAT and RCT. This is actually very easy to do, and a lot of people actually hand over a lot of money to an accountant to do it for them. But as you will see in a while, there is actually no need to do that. Every penny is very important when you're starting a business, so it's better off to try and save wherever you can. If you're new to the channel and you appreciate me saving you a few quid, then subscribe and hit the like button. Before you get to this stage of actually registering for tax, you need to actually have your company set up and have gotten a company registration number. If you are not at this stage yet, then you should check out my other video that goes through everything you need to do in the first 6 months of setting up a company in Ireland. It will give you all of the legal and accounting things that you need to get done. Okay, so now we're actually ready to start going through the forms. So the form you need to fill out for a company registering for tax in Ireland is a TR2 form. I will leave a link below to where you can find it in the description section. Okay, so now I have the form open here in front of me. We'll go through this step by step. Part A really is just a piece of piss. It is just taking all of the different details about your company. So first off, part A, part 1, then you need to put in just your company's name. So this would be the name that you have on the certificate of incorporation, be it ABC Limited or something like that, for example. Point 2 then is if your business is trading under a different name. So sometimes you might have a different name for your company to what your brand is, for example. So if you have a different brand name, you probably need to register that as well with the CRO. And here is where you would put it on the tax registration form. Point 3 then is just your business address. And as I say here, this cannot be your tax advisor or your accountant's address. It needs to be your own business address where you actually carry out your different duties or you sell your goods or whatever. Point 4 is your registered office address. So your registered office address should essentially be wherever you keep your accounting records and stuff like that. It's probably the same as your business address, but it might be different. So sometimes people use their actual accountant's address for this. So go with whatever is right for you. Point 5 then is the legal format of the company. So for 99% of people here, it is going to be a private limited company. So you can just tick that box. Point 6 then is the date the company was registered. So this will be on your certificate of incorporation. When you set up the company, it will have the date that it was actually registered and that you put that into point number 6. Number 7 then is your CRO number, which will also be on your certificate of incorporation. So it's just a matter of taking your number and plonking it in here. Point 8 then is the date that you actually start trading. It doesn't have to be the date that you're actually incorporated. So whenever you start actually doing business, that is the date you need to put in here. So point 9 here is to do with what date you're going to have your year end. The longest set of accounts you can have for a company in Ireland for the first set is 18 months. So after that, then it will be 12 months. So you need to probably just talk to your accountant on this and decide when you're going to have your year-end accounts, and then that will tell you what date you need to put in here. So the maximum you can have is from 18 months from when the company starts. So you're probably going to have it at some point close to 18 months, probably to try and get the advantage out of having a long first set of accounts. Point 10 then is just if you want to have your tax affairs dealt with in Irish. You can tick the box there if you want to do that. If the company that you're registering here was already registered for tax in prior years, then you can put in the tax registration number here. So they just ask to see if it has previously been registered before. Point 12 then, they're just going to ask you the percentage of sales that you will have online. So if you're an e-commerce business, this could be 100%. So it's just an estimation really. You don't have to be too accurate about it. And for a lot of people, it might be 0%. Then you need to put in your website address there as well. And point 13, they're just going to ask you a little bit about the type of business that you're running. So you just need to tick the box depending on what different sector it is and give a bit of a description just on what exactly your business does. And part C of this, they're looking for an expected turnover for the first 12 months of your business. So this again is just an estimation. Nobody is really going to know. You'll probably have some sort of forecast of what you hope to achieve. You can probably just put that figure in there. Point 14 then, they're just looking for what kind of accounting package that you're using, whether it's Sage or QuickBooks or something like that. Don't worry about that if you don't have one yet. There's actually lots of free ones out there that you can use as well if you're looking to save a few quid, which I might do a video on as well. You can always just tick no here if you don't have anything yet, because sometimes when you start a company, there might not be a lot going on for the first few months. Point 15 is whether you are going to be supplying plastic bags to your customers. So if you tick yes on this, then you're probably going to have to register for an e-levy as well. So they collect a tax basically on all of the plastic bags that you give to customers. So that might not apply to you at all in your business, so you can just leave that blank if it doesn't. Point 16 then, they are just looking for the details of the directors of the company. So they just want your name, address, the percentage shareholding that they have, and their PPS numbers. So you would have already done this when you set up the company. You would have signed people who are going to be the directors, the company secretary, and who are the shareholders of the company. So you can just fill in the details of all of the directors here. And then point 17 here, then they just want you to add in whoever the company secretary is. That might be just one of the people who you have already listed as a director here. And if it is, then you just need to put their name and you don't have to put the address and PPS number again. And point 18, then they're just looking for any shareholders basically that are not directors of the company that have more than 15% of the share capital of the company. So they're basically beneficial owners or silent investors or whatever you can call them, but not directors of the company, but own shares in the company. So in point 19, they are looking for the details of the accountant or tax advisor that is going to be preparing all of your different tax returns. So if you're going to be doing them yourself, then you can leave this blank. If not, then contact your accountant and get their tax numbers and stuff like that. Also in this point 19, you just have to tick on what different taxes that they are going to be looking after here. So you can tick on the VAT and RCT or PAYE, PRSI. Point 20 then is to do with whether you are renting a premises or not. So you need to put in the name and private address of the landlord and the amount of rent and stuff about the lease. You need to also submit a copy of the rental lease agreement. You only need to fill out point 21 then if you had bought your business that you set up here now from somebody else. So you need to put in the name and the address of the person you bought it from and their VAT number. So that is part A done and dusted. We'll move on now to part B. So part B is very simple. You just need to tick the box that you're registering for corporation tax. So all normal companies that are going to be operating are going to be paying corporation tax, so you can just tick that box. And for anybody who is not going to be registering for VAT or PAYE, for example, then you are pretty much done with the form except for signing it at the bottom. Parts C, D and E of the form relate to VAT, PAYE and RCT, which I'll go through now as well. Okay, so part C of the form is to do with registering for VAT. So it depends on the type of business that you are setting up, whether you are going to be straight away registering for VAT or not. So you don't have to actually register for VAT unless you supply goods worth over 75,000 in 12 months if you're selling products, or if you provide services worth over 37,500 in 12 months, then you need to register for VAT. If you are below those limits, which you might be for the first year or two of your business, then you might not need to actually register for VAT, but there might be some benefits to doing so depending on the type of business that you have. So that might be something that you need to consider, whether it is going to be a benefit or not to you to register for VAT straight away. Okay, so point 23 on the form here is just tick the box if you're going to register for VAT. So in point 24 then, you are just entering the date which you are actually registering for VAT. So this needs to be in the current VAT period, which the VAT periods are normally every 2 months. So you probably need to register at some point in the 2-month period that you're currently in. So it normally goes January, February, March, April, so on. Part B of 24 here is to do with farmers and non-taxable entities, so that might not be applicable to you. Part C then is you are saying the reason why you are actually registering for VAT. So part 1 there of C is saying if your turnover exceeds the limits, which I said a few minutes ago. So if you're selling products and you're making turnover of over 75,000, then you are exceeding a turnover limit, and 37,500 for services, then you're exceeding the limit. So you would tick that box if that is the reason why you're registering. But as I said, you can register even if you're below those limits if it suits you. And part 2, then you would be electing to be a taxable person, so you would just tick that box. There is another reason why you might actually register for VAT, and that is if you are dealing with reverse charges, and that is point 3 there of 24C. If you move on then to point 25, that is whether you want to elect to do VAT on a cash receipts basis or not. So normally when you don't do a cash receipts basis, how it works is, say if I make a sale I'll charge VAT on the sale, so it's whatever 23% for example. Then in the next VAT return, I need to pay over that 23% VAT to revenue, even if the customer has not actually paid me for the sale that I made. But if you elect then to do it on a cash receipts basis, you don't actually pay over the VAT to revenue until the customer actually pays you for that sale. So if you want to go that way about it, then you can just tick yes here on this form. And then you need to also say the reason why you're doing it. So your annual turnover needs to be less than 2 million, and 90% of your expected annual turnover needs to be from supplying goods or services to persons who are not registered for VAT. So if you're making kind of business to business sales, then you might not be able to actually do it on a cash receipts basis. Point 26, then you need to just state the expected annual turnover in the supply of goods or services within Ireland. In point 27, then you're just given a bit of a description of the products or services that you're supplying and a bit about your kind of storage and distribution channels. So you might just have a small e-commerce business and you have everything stored at home and you're using An Post as your courier, then you would put in all of these kind of details here. But maybe you are a bigger business and you have your own couriers and your own vans, etc. So you put in this kind of detail here in point 27. In point 28 then, it is just trying to get a feel for whether you're going to be selling or buying stuff from other EU countries that are not Ireland. So you need to just tick all of the different boxes here, whether you plan on selling goods or services into other EU states or intend on buying goods and services from other EU states. If you have answered yes to any of those points in 28, then you need to fill out section 29, which is trying to get a feel for what kind of businesses or customers that you have outside of Ireland that you're dealing with, but within the EU. So whether you're dealing with private individuals or businesses or both, and the types of checks that you have to know who you're actually dealing with, and the transport arrangements, and what kind of documentation that you will actually be providing to show that the goods actually left the state. So then point 30 goes on to talk about the VAT information exchange system. So this is for anybody who makes sales of goods or services from Ireland to other EU member states. Then there is an information exchange for the whole of Europe. So you basically need to fill out a report. So as well as doing your VAT return every 2 months, for example, every quarter you need to do a VIES report as well. So on this return, you need to actually put all of the different customers that you have from these other European countries and the total amount of goods that you have sold to them. So this is done every quarter, but you only need to do it if you go above some certain thresholds as well. So in part A here, you can just tick the boxes for what level of supplies that you will make to other EU states and whether you will exceed 50,000 in a quarter. So in point 31 then, they are just looking for your company's bank details. You might end up in a situation where the revenue might owe you money, so they will need to refund you in that kind of case. Point 32 is just for developers and landlords, so I'm not going to really cover that in this video. Point 33 is to do with postponed accounting for VAT. So this is to do with anything, if you're importing any goods from outside of the EU, you know that you're going to get caught with VAT. So say if I got something from, say, Alibaba through my company, when that reaches Ireland, it's going to go in through customs duties and they're going to see what company this goods belongs to and they're going to charge VAT on it. So to get those goods released, you're going to have to actually go and pay that VAT. So if you choose to do postponed accounting, you won't actually have to pay your VAT on your imports. What will happen is essentially on your next VAT return, it will go in as a debit and a credit and cancel each other out if you go for postponed accounting. But if not, you're going to end up having to pay the VAT and then claim it back on your next VAT return. So you're going to have to pay out cash and then get it back. But this way you can just avoid doing it if you go for postponed accounting. So then here on the form, they are just looking for a bit of detail on the volume and the value of goods you will be importing from outside of the EU and some details about the suppliers. So that's part C done, registering for VAT. If you want to register now for PAYE, so if you plan on either paying yourself a salary or if you plan on hiring anybody, you'll need to register for PAYE. So let's go through part D. So in point 34, you just tick the box if you want to register for PAYE. In point 35, then you need to say how many people you're going to have working full-time and part-time. So full-time is more than 30 hours, part-time is less than 30 hours. Then you need to just put in the date the first employee actually commenced work with you. And then if we move on to point 36, you need to just put in what kind of payroll system you're going to use. So there's lots of different payroll tax softwares out there that will help you track all of the taxes that are due for payment at the end of the month to revenue. So they're just asking here what kind of system you are using. This might be something, however, that you have outsourced to an accountant or a different firm that specializes in this kind of thing, so you can put in whatever system that they use. In point 37 then, as I was saying, if you have an agent that looks after all of your payroll for you, you just need to put in all of their details here into point 37. So you just need to get their tax number, their name, address, and their emails. So part E of the form relates to registration for relevant contracts tax. So this will apply to anybody who is basically a principal contractor to a subcontractor in construction, say, or forestry or meat processing industries. So it probably doesn't apply to a lot of people in this video. But anyway, if you are registering, you just need to tick the relevant boxes, whether you are a principal only, a principal and subcontractor, or a subcontractor only, the date you actually want to commence to register for RCT. Then in point 40, they just want to know whether you are registered for ROS and whether you already have an agent. Point 41 then, they're just looking to see, have you previously registered with Revenue as a principal? And in point 42, if you have, then when you last ceased to be a principal. So don't worry about all of that in part E if you're not working in something like construction. It's only kind of relevant to those guys. And finally, we're at the last part of the form. All you need to do now is put in their name and the signature and what capacity you are, whether you're a director or a secretary, for example, the date, your phone number, and then you just need to post it off. And once you have it all posted off, they will then send you back your tax registration number, which you can then go to try and set up your ROS Online. So your ROS Online then is going to be where you actually prepare and submit all of your tax returns then going forward, or else you will need to give your tax agent or your accountant access to your ROS, and they will go and do that for you on your ROS. Okay, so that is pretty much it for today's video. I know that was a pretty fast overview of the form. I didn't want to make this video way too long, but if anybody has any questions on anything I might have skipped over or gone a bit too fast on, please leave them below in the comment section and I will try and get back to you on them. So thanks very much for watching. I hope you found it useful. If you did, I would really appreciate it if you just hit that like button and hit the subscribe button to keep up to date with my latest videos.